Hello, and I bet I know what you are thinking, or at least I hope I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking, this isn't going too badly, is it? Because if you're anything like me, you may have thought 5 days of Zoom. I don't think so. But I don't know about you. I have found this remarkably invigorating and supportive 3 days so far, with 3 days more to come. And I think I want to start with thanking three people for this. And if you want to give them a high five too, maybe put 5 exclamation marks in the chat. Steve Bustin, our president, thrown into this, let's do an online thing. And I think delivering it with such panache. Sarah Beth behind the scenes, if you get a message from PSA in the chat, that's probably Sarah Beth doing all of that, pulling lots of strings. And Angus in our control room, you don't see him, but he's making sure I'm up when I'm meant to be and our speakers are up when they're meant to be, putting it all together. So a big high five to them for managing to do all this. Now, when Steve approached me, he said, John, could you do Wednesday? And I have a tricky relationship with Wednesdays. It stems to my school days when Wednesdays was double science, double maths, and football. And being an arty type and a bit of a lovey, none of that was going to work for me. So I never liked Wednesdays. But I'm really glad I did get Wednesday for this. Because if you've been looking carefully, you will have seen that there's a theme to each day. Monday was online v face-to-face. Tuesday was more business. And today's theme is better business. And what that means really, and we're about to hear all about it, is productivity. How can we be more productive? And the speaker we're about to hear from is a wizard on productivity. I spoke to Liz on the phone and had a chat and said, where do you stand on the Wednesday thing? And she said, oh, Wednesdays are delivery day. And Liz's aim is to help us all have a 4-day week. So I don't know what the rest of her week we're going to find out. But Wednesday is delivery day. And don't we all like to have a delivery day? Now, Liz is very organized. Productivity is her thing. She has put in the vault. And if you think vault, Facebook, auction, where is this stuff? It's all in the reception area of Pocket. You go in the vault, print out her workbook, maybe a bit late now, but great to have with you. I printed it out. Looking forward to going through that. That will be a great thing to have during Liz's session. So let's just hear a little bit about Liz. She sent me the biography. It sounds absolutely fantastic. She's helping people create a 4-day week. Can't wait for that. Over 20 years experience in the broadcast media and digital sectors, won a bunch of prizes, including Northwest PSA speaker. Today, sharing productivity hacks, workflows, and tech solutions tried and tested around the world, 4 continents, you know the kind of stuff. Going to help us reduce procrastination and get stuff done. So without further ado, let's get stuff done and welcome into the room, Liz Hardwick.
Hey! Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for that brilliant intro. So, absolutely Wednesdays, delivery day. I think that's always a good focus to have of different themes on different days. So, well, if you, John, how's today going far?
Pretty well. A few technical hitches we just had a moment ago, but before we came on air, the Wi-Fi 4G wasn't working, but we managed it. We were productive. We pulled through.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much anyway. And hopefully, you can take some tips away from what we've got to see today as well. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Okay, so hello everyone. Thank you very much for that great intro. And also thank you very much for all the great support in the chat as well. This is my first PSA Summit. So thank you very much for being also welcome as well. I recognise some friendly faces that I've met along the way on the other regional PSAs. I am from the Northwest PSA. So if you're wondering where the accent's from, that's Lancashire. So today our session will be productivity hacks for running a better business. So we'll get straight into it. There's going to be lots of different points, so I'm going to ask you to do stuff in the chat, put comments and questions and stuff in. So as we go, and hopefully if you do have your printed handout, then I'll explain how you can use that after the session as well. And if you're listening on catch up, then this is really useful for you to be able to reflect and do your own work as well. So is this you, or has this been you at any point during lockdown? So we've got so much stuff. We think, where do we start? Feeling overwhelmed, feeling like there's too much to do, the life, the work. I notice people have mentioned school already. If you've been doing, the homeschooling over lockdown, has it felt like you've got a million things, but you don't know what to do next, or don't know what to do first, even? Well, I was there. I was 2 years into running my digital training company, and this was a fair few years ago now. But I felt overwhelmed. I felt like I didn't know what to do next. So hopefully, I'll share with you some top tips. But if you're feeling like you're a bit stuck in that position at the moment, I know I have during lockdown, and ways that you can get unstuck. But also, if you're feeling like super on top of things, hopefully there's still some takeaway tips that can optimize the time that you do spend doing stuff. And we're going to delve a bit deeper into what that stuff is. So, in this session, I want to cover some top productivity hacks that I use myself, that I help to try and focus down to a 4-day working week, which we've mentioned right at the very start. How to reduce distractions in your workplace, and your workplace might be home right now, so thinking about the different spaces that you do work from. Some top workflows and some apps to go alongside those, and the best productivity process I have found that helps me consistently do a 4-day working week. And I do more than 1 day's delivery a week as well. It depends, but Wednesdays are definitely a delivery hot day for people booking, and I'm sure other people will feel the same that way. So, yeah, as my intro said, I do a lot of things. I wear a lot of hats. I speak, I train, I do a lot of traveling, or I did do. I'm missing my traveling around the world bit, but I also sit on a couple of boards and do a lot of kind of engaging others in my spare time as well. And why am I sharing this with you? Well, I think it's also thinking about the hats that we wear. So if you're also a parent, a carer, all of these things I think have been really magnified during lockdown. And, I've been there, I've been the overwhelmed. I do a million and one different things, but using the tips and the processes I'm going to cover today, it is possible. So even if you feel like you're spinning a million of those plates, then hopefully we'll be able to share some tips with you today. And you'll also notice, if anyone's an American football fan, I'd love to chat more to you about American football. Chiefs, who has been my team for many, many years, finally won the Super Bowl last year. So I'm very excited about that. So if anyone can appreciate that, or any of our international colleagues in that, then yeah, we'll have a chat later. So what you'll see is there's 2 sets of chats in the window that you've got. Everyone's hopefully on the stage, but if you're not already and you're stuck in the event, if you can come on over to the stage section, so you do have to just click that little button that says stage next to it. If you haven't got the chat window open already, there's a little arrow that pops out. We're going to be using that. So please do keep that open. So inside the stage chat now, what I want you to do is share with us a little bio about yourself. So very, very short, one-liner, who you are, what you do, or where you're from. And I want you to share on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being dreadful and 10 being amazing, couldn't get any better, Liz, is how do you feel your week is this week? How productive you think your week is? And currently, how productive you think your month is going so far. So I want you to just pop that into the chat now for me. And that's also on your handout as well. So if you're doing it on catch up, it's the first page on the inside section. If you've printed it as a booklet format, which I love doing, you've also got the place to answer the question why as well. So how are you reflecting? You should be doing this on a regular basis, really, because this will help you figure out where you are, and also then maybe where you want to be. Okay, so brilliant. Some 5s, some 7s, some 4 out of 10s, and 8 out of 10s for the month. We are very, very, kind of short into the month. It's only the 7th day of the month, so we've got the opportunity to really change it round if we haven't already. Fabulous. So everyone's about a 7 based on the general numbers. Guy's been on a holiday last week. Lucky you. I've just had to cancel my holiday to Turkey today. So I'm very disappointed about that. So my productivity level today is probably about a 7. I think we're all feeling the same. I think we've got, room to improve. And I think my biggest thing is procrastinating and how we can try and avoid doing that, because that can zap a lot of our time. So I'll share with you lots of top tips for that have actually worked for me. And that when I think, oh yes, actually I'm only on a 7 this week, how can I make that into a 10 by the end of Friday, or by the end of Thursday if you've joined me in having the Fridays off? But Friday's very special this week, obviously, for the PSA Summit. So what does this pie chart to you represent? It's a pie. Get it? It's it's a lovely American pumpkin pie, I think, as well, which is perfectly seasonal. So this is all about the Pareto principle. So we talk about 80% that the results come from 20% of your actions. So if you've heard that process before, it needs been around forever. But if we think about it in terms of how much time we can dedicate to those things that are the 20%, first of all, you could ask yourself, what is the 20% that's important? What is the 20% of getting stuff done that you need to get done that you spend 80% of the time procrastinating, faffing? You've got a team that work alongside you. Are you not delegating when you should do? That's a big time zapper. You have got a team and you don't trust them enough to give them the jobs that you're asking them to do, because you want to hold on to it because it's your baby. You're the front of your speaker business. Sometimes it can feel a little awkward to hand stuff off. But actually, if you're using that as a procrastination process, that can work against you as well. So having a think about how much procrastination per week you actually spend. So first question of the session, I want you to have a pop in the chat again. What's your current top distraction? So I want you to share in the chat what your top distraction is right now. What is it? What does it feel like it is? If then also you want to share why, that might be a bit more personal, so you might not want to share that with us. You might want to pop that in the handout instead, so you've got that there for reflection, or if you just want to write it on your notepad or post-it note. So what's your current top distraction and why? So we'll share those in the chat. Is the cake gluten-free, Jeremy? It can be gluten-free, it can be wheat-free, it can be whatever free you want it to be, my love. Brilliant. Social media is a Times app. Wow, yes. Zoom calls. Now, Zoom calls is really interesting for speakers, isn't it? Because we can spend time presenting. So then that's great because that's being super productive. But then are we spending time on one-to-ones or catch-ups, or are we doing too many coffees or too many networking? And we start to reel that back in and think, how much time am I dedicating to that? This summit's distracting, Marina. Brilliant. Yeah, it totally is, isn't it? Block the whole week off. Block the whole week off. Susan's business development. David Donald Trump. Crikey. Okay, fair enough. Yes, the news for me is the biggest distraction at the moment. During lockdown, I seem to be attached to rolling 24-hour news, even though the news was exactly the same as it was the 14 minutes ago that I watched the same clip. So, kind of going on and on and on, reading the same stories actually increases that procrastination, but also, the feelings that might be negative alongside that as well. And we can get into a bit of a emotional loop. Checking emails. Oh, yes. Loads of you have mentioned emails. I've got a few top tips for you later on around emails, because that is one of the massive time zaps. So in terms of the why, you might want to keep that to yourself, but have a think about how and why you are getting distracted. So for me, the news, I felt like I needed to connect with the outside world right at the very start of lockdown and understand why we were all sat at home and understand why we were, in the state that we were in. And I wanted to gain more information and research. And I guess news was the source that I went to because I trusted. And Jeremy mentioned BBC News before. Yes, that was my go-to news channel because I felt that the best platform to find out my information. But then after a while, it just became, quite a negative time zap and an energy zap as well. So that became one of my big distractions. And there's a link in the handout where all these bits of information from my slides are on that you can check out later as well. But physical environmental factors, a lot of us are working from home at the moment. So we have shoulder tapping, Liz, 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 or mum or dad. Can you just I used to work in a radio station as a broadcast engineer, and it would just always be the can you just. And if you were running live to time, or like all the speakers do, running to a start of something, going live online or in person, you know, that kind of distraction can distract you away from what you're doing. But also, it's people, it's environment, it's hands up who's just being distracted by chores, because all the time the house is just a nightmare and you're just like, I need to get that done. I keep seeing piles of stuff and you're just like, oh yeah, I'll just do that now. I'll just do that now. And for me, the news was the distraction, because I got to sit downstairs on the sofa and watch the news and think, oh yeah, I'll leave that. So we all know what our distractions are, and if we haven't analysed it, now's a good time to do that. Because especially if you are still working from home and might be for the foreseeable future, then that's how we go forwards with that. Brilliant. Sarah Fox is talking about eating the frog. Eating the frog is one of the processes that says do that right the very first thing you do when you get up in the morning. And for me, that doesn't work. But absolutely, all of these processes are about thinking, how can you try something and have a go. For me, that one doesn't work. But yeah, there's other ones that do that I highly recommend instead. So those some physical factors, and then there's some digital factors as well. As much as you're hopefully listening 100% concentration on me, I know that there's those emails that pop in and those notifications that pop up, and it's very, very easy to get distracted. It takes 16 minutes from when you have a pop up or a distraction to getting back onto the focus of the task. So notifications here on screen, or an audible ping or a pop on your phone, things like that, even if you choose to not action on it or not open that email or not listen to what that message might be, the fact that it's popped up has already distracted you. So 16 minutes it will take you to refocus back on the task. Tony's saying, what did you just say? Brilliant, well done. You're all getting the idea. Absolutely. Peter saying stop watching news for the mental health as well, and that's a mental physical wellness as well, that all goes with this. And especially if we're not used to working from home and not used to these different ways of working, it can be a massive stress on the system, the body, the mental, and you the spiritual capacity as well. If you're a spiritual or a religious person, not being able to necessarily go and engage with that which we would normally do in the outside world, that has a factor to it as well. And you'll notice some of those answers that you already answered in the chat when we asked you what your top distraction was are on there as well. So my next thing is asking yourself what your high value targets are. And that's again in the handout for those people who are following along. And for this, I've put a picture of money, but actually it might not be money. It might be personal time with the family. It might be, you're not necessarily selling right now, but it might be that it's, you're doing professional development at the moment. So what is your high value activity? And this goes some way to where Sarah was mentioning the eat that frog just before as a productivity process of doing that thing first, but making sure you have something in your day that is a high value activity. So not necessarily spending all day in your emails if that's actually a distraction. If it's, of use and it's you talking to clients and it's chasing people up for invoices, maybe, if there's a reason and a business reason for it, then is that a high value activity? Or again, going back to that 80% of faffing or not delegating, are those sort of lower value tasks that you could delegate off to? So thinking about how that works. Yeah, Renee, 16 minutes. Now I know why I never can back up my work at hands. Fair enough. Yeah. 16 minutes. Every time you get distracted, you have to restart again. So it's thinking about how you do that. So high value activities, think about what is the high value activity for you and pop it into your handout if you're working alongside us. I won't ask you to share that one. That's just something for you to personally think about. And so some top tips then. I absolutely, during lockdown, have swore by a good morning routine. Getting yourself up in the morning and going is a thing of the past at the moment. So we might be used to traveling, getting up, going the day before, the business of the travel world, and how are we getting there? So it might be that you have what we would call a commute. Now, a lot of us wouldn't necessarily commute to the same place every day, but a lot of us would have a commute period of time. So if we're getting up, we're going somewhere. A lot of businesses and business people during lockdown have literally just got up, rolled out of bed, and started work. And so a morning routine puts that buffer back in between your personal get up time and your starting work time. I actually have two morning routines. I have a personal one, and then I also have a business one as well. So, what are my daily tasks for the day? What are my high value targets that I want to achieve today? Thinking about how you can make that work for you. George is saying he loves a good morning routine. Brilliant. If you haven't thought about it before, it's definitely worth having a look. There's a great process called Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. He's got a book of that name as well. There's also a Facebook group where you can get more involved in that. And it's around savers. And I'll come on to talk about that a little bit more when we do calendar suggestions. So notifications, if you've got a smartphone, it is smart. So choose what notifications you want to be alerted for. So for example, for me, my emails don't audibly or visually pop up. I choose when to check them. If your client's ringing you is important, make sure your ringer for your phone is on. If WhatsApp is just a thing with your mates, then maybe switch that on and switch the noises off and periodically look at them when you choose to. And that's again not being distracted by the notifications that aren't important to you, or again aren't aligned with the high value tasks that you want to achieve for the day. Concise calendars. So especially if you are working with other people's teams, it can be helpful to share your calendar for other people to see when you're free, when you're available. We talked yesterday in one of the other sessions around penciling or penning, sort of bookings in, scheduling things. If you're going to pencil a date in for a client for a particular conference, are you making that super clear that that's a pencil mark? And how are you doing that? Have you got color codes? Have you got literally pencil or TBC? Have you got an organized calendar that if someone else looked at it, how would you engage with it that way? And then reactive and proactive work. Now, this is something that during lockdown, all of us have gone into firefighting mode. Clients have cancelled, conferences have been rescheduled or cancelled as well. So we've just become this firefighting person that just solves the problems that are there in front of us. Now, hopefully, we're starting to ease out of that now. We're starting to build back up with the proactiveness. But have you got proactive time booked in every week, every month to really see? Someone had said business planning, and that's very simple. A strategy for your business. Have you read that marketing plan that you started in January, but basically has gone out the window? So all of those things that you can think about, have you got some time to actually think? Do you need to book in some thinking time to think about these things? Or be proactive, go and call back all your clients that you haven't spoken to in 6 months and just see, hey, how are you doing? Checking in on you. And that can be proactive for work as well, because you're actually moving forwards with a potential goal. And then if you like virtually co-working, there is lots of platforms out there where you can type in who you want to connect with. You can spend a 90-minute time period virtually working together, and then you can say goodbye at the end and you've met someone. So similar to the, if you wanted to use the networking for that, you could get on, say hello to someone and then carry on with some work. So if you've got a team of people that are all working remotely on, someone just mentioned writing a book. if you're wanting to try and focus on a particular task like that at the moment, that can be really helpful to buddy up with people. And you can still do that virtually, kind of like a virtual co-working, if you will. So, next question then. What does your current working week look like? And how would you like to improve it? So this is the next section on the handout if you've printed it. So having a think about that and thinking, do you want to have themes for each day of the week? Have you got sales on one day? Have you got marketing on another? Have you got delivery on another day? Is it all organized, or is it something that you kind of just are still in firefighting mode for? Is there something that you can do to actually reaffirm how your calendar looks? Guy's going to look into the virtual co-working. Super. There's loads of great people to do to meet out there as well, and a great networking opportunity as well. So have a think about that. That's more a task to go away and action on, and you know, think about what you want it to look like. Now I know everyone's going to just say, well, more work, Liz. And you know, obviously we don't necessarily have that major control over that at the moment because the conferences all gone on lockdown. But you know, the things that we can control, you know, do you want to have more balance in your week? Do you want to not work a Friday? You know, if you set out, and you might not be able to do that straight away, but if you set out what your goals are and what you'd like to improve in a working week, you can play with it that way. Okay, brilliant. One to think about there. So this is a point where any questions that you have, please pop them in the chat with a capital Q and a colon, and then we're going to come back to those in a minute. So John's hopefully there to take notes if you've got any particular questions, and we'll be able to cover a couple. So if you've heard of anything already that you want a little bit more of a refined answer on, or just something that you might be able to help you with, then we'll come back to that in a minute. So start your questions with the Q and I'll pop up with those. So a couple more tips and then we'll come back to questions, is track everything. So I've done this a couple of times since lockdown myself, and it's a great way to evaluate where your time is being spent and where your time is being sucked up as well. It could be you go for just a paper diary and you mark off what you're doing every hour or every half an hour. There's lots of different processes out there that say half an hour, you know, what are you doing? But basically just trying to note down what you've done within that particular hour period, or what you've done within that particular couple of hours slot, just so that you have somewhere to start from. Try not to, you know, be horrible to yourself. Try and just be, you know, just kind of thoughtful and caring and just say, this is the way it is right now. Be able to evaluate and move forwards from there. But we all need to start somewhere. So being able to glean all the data in about what you're currently doing in a week can be really helpful to kind of refine. And then if you don't want to do the whole every half an hour, every hour, I know I find that quite a struggle. What I've done is in the handout, I've got a little a sort of different sections. So there's a pre-work section. So that could be a miracle morning. It could be just a routine that you have to get yourself sorted. What are you doing in the morning? What are you doing in the afternoon? And what are you doing post work? Now that's another thing at the moment as well, because if you're working from home, there's not much distinction between home life and work life. I know lots of people are saying that they're living at work at the moment. So how do we start to refine that? How do we help ourselves switch off at the end of the night so that we can have a really good, productive, relaxing evening, so we can be much more on it the following day? So that's if you want to not track it every minute of the day. Or for those digital people or lazy people who just want an app to do it for you, there's a fabulous app called Rescue Time. And the free version is normally more than enough for the data that you need. So we can install those on our mobile phones, our devices, anything that you can download an app on, our computers, laptops. And what it'll do is it'll sit in the background and it will track exactly what you're doing. So it will enable you to see what apps you're spending your time on. You know, now I'm something like 300 plus hours on Zoom. I used to be something like, this is an old screenshot pre-COVID, but the big thing in the graph for me there is emails. Even I can still spend hours and hours procrastinating, sat in my inbox. So having to think about that. But that's a great app to be able to track without the hassle of having to do the paper and pen if that's not your thing. So, back in the chat for me, I want you to share with me if you're A or B. So, have a look at my screen. Are you A or are you B? So, are you A, where you've got 9999 plus to the point your inbox has stopped counting? Or are you B, where you're totally on top of things? And you have everything organized. You have different folders for different clients, different conferences that you're working on. Which one's you? Oh, there's like a stream of A's and then a stream of B's. Oh, do you know what? I think that's pretty mixed. I think the B's win by marginal. Oh no, actually, there's loads of B's coming in now. The A's maybe are procrastinating over saying yes or no or not. Normally be. Okay, that's good. Normally, we can fluctuate between the two. And these are actually live screenshots of my business partner's email inbox and my email inbox. So, you'd hope that mine was the B because I'm sharing with you productivity tips. But yeah, interesting to see. Okay, so thank you very much for that. What we're going to do is we're going to see if there's any questions in the chat at the moment. So John, have you got anything you've spotted?
Certainly do. Written them down on my colourful sheet of paper here. I think we'll just go through the order they came in. And Guy Clapperton was first off the mark. Guy likes the idea of virtual co-working, but has no idea where to start. Do you have any pointers?
Oh, okay. So a great website called focusmate.com. That's a free one to use. You can pair yourself, you get automatically paired up with someone. You can have like a couple of minutes chit chat and then you minimize, carry on with your work. And then at the end, a timer pops up and say, you have another 5-minute chat. How did you get on? That can be really useful for if you're working on your own at the moment and there's no one around to kind of, be answerable to, have someone who can say, I'm in this 90 minutes, I'm going to achieve X, and then, have some kind of form of backup there as well.
Okay, well, Guy, hope you found that helpful. Next question came in from Caroline Hopkins. Caroline asks, how do we keep up good habits? And she does confess, I think we can all confess to this, she does lose momentum sometimes.
Definitely. That's a really good question. It's all about habit tracking and habit stacking. So I've got an app later on that I'll share with you that's good for the habit tracking. So I'll share that towards the end. But habit stacking is about thinking how you can remember to do something while you're already doing something else. So a simple example of that is, okay, so maybe you're going to say you want to drink more water. That's a big thing that we all forget at the moment, especially when we're sat on our computers all day. We don't necessarily stop when we should do. So I've got into a habit of every time I go and make a coffee, also go and make a glass of water and have those together. So that would be every time I do something, I do another thing. So I'm not great at the whole drinking water. So I might make myself a coffee and then force myself to have a water as well. Or it might be, what are you doing while you're, brushing your teeth in the morning? Have you got a new talk that you want to sort of rattle through some of the lines for? Are you thinking about a new introduction? If there's things that you can practice running through in your head, are you doing that while you're brushing your teeth every morning? So it's about kind of stacking things on top. Alex has just recommended Atomic Habits. That's a great book as well to recommend about habits. Habit stacking is one of those examples in there as well.
Okay, ready for a third question? Got time for a third question, Liz? And then I can get some
Go
more
for
for
it.
later if you
Yes.
like. Yep. Got my
Yes,
glass of
please.
water, by the way. Got organised with that. Heather Wright, how are we realistic about each of the activities that we engage in? Heather says she underestimates, and again, don't we all, how long things can take?
Absolutely. There's a stat that 17% of the population accurately guesstimate time. So the rest of us are totally underestimating or overestimating how long stuff takes. So yeah, it's a brilliant question. How do we get stuff done? Smart goals. David Heine would definitely disagree with that. So being the realistic bit of that. So how do you be realistic? Just start small. If you've got a particular task you're trying to do, try and do baby steps or tiny steps within it. So if there's a larger task, try and figure out how you can break that down into smaller tasks. And then even if you're just doing the one task to get started, you'll find that's really helpful if you are stuck in that kind of overwhelm mode as well, because that can be just like, what little step can I do today to get going and get moving? So the realistic could just be, today I'm going to try and do one of those tiny steps for that particular task I'm trying to achieve.
Okay. Do you want one more question now, Liz, or do you want
If
to
you've got
crack
if
on
you've
with?
got one more, go for it. Go for it. We'll
I've
cram it
got one
in.
more on my notes, and then I'll have to move away from the screen and go and find some more. But here comes a question from Ben. Ben Affy says, very creative, very organised with his time, really on the ball. But, and here's the but, he's a creative kind of guy, and he can lose himself in projects. So you've got the time thing, but you've got the losing yourself in the projects and daydreaming. How do you manage that situation? I'm going to go off now and
Yes.
find some more questions.
Brilliant. Thank you, John. Yes. So the answer to that one then is booking in some time to be creative. Because we're all creatives in some way, shape, or form. Because I think that it's one of the ways that we are who we are. We do need to be creative. To come up with new ideas, come up with new talks, new keynotes, new workshops. But being able to book in the time. So if you're enabling yourself to be creative, or plan or work on a particular project, book that into your calendar so you don't feel guilty about not doing the work or doing it in a time when you're supposed to be doing something else because you booked it in there. Give it the kind of calendar time that it deserves, but then also have a cut-off time. So 3 hours or half a day, once a month, to work on creative projects. And how do you work around that? Kevin's saying, allocate an amount of time, it pushes me to get stuff done. Absolutely. I've got 3 hours to do this. A lot of the deadlines that we work along these days. I used to work in broadcasting, where if I didn't create a piece of content to go to air, like in 6 minutes, there was going to be dead air. So, there's no bigger deadline than that. And so anything else, in the whole world of like speaking or, business, there hasn't really been any sort of major deadlines as strict as that. If you're a couple of minutes late for something, people might be a bit forgiving. So it's kind of how you make that work as well. And setting your own deadlines is absolutely one of them. Fabulous. Well, thank you very much for those questions, everyone. We'll have another little section towards the end. If you have any final questions you want to pop in, make sure you put in the queue in the box. So we'll pop it into my slides again now. Fabulous. So well done for picking the A and B. And it is a whole session in itself, emails. There's massive training that can be done with emails. On the 21st of November, I'll be speaking at the PSA Yorkshire region, and the topic will be around email management. So we're only taking some tiny little tidbits around email today. But there's the follow-up session if you want to come and do more. The biggest thing with email is it the right platform? We've talked already this week around thinking about what your clients' needs are. Go that one step further. Do they want an email or do they want a phone call? I know there's some clients I have that are non-techie and they just want to be able to pick up the phone. Liz, I've got this problem. They don't want an email. So is email the actual best platform to be engaging someone in? If you've got a team or you're working with bookers, are there calendar systems that are more useful for you? Have you explored? We've had email since the 90s, and we've all sort of stuck with that as a default because it's easy. But you could also CC the whole world in and the whole world doesn't want to know what that content is. So you can also flip other, other ways of thinking about it as well. Do the other people actually need to receive that email, or is it just the couple of people you need to send it to? We spend 36 days a year sending emails. So you can see where our time goes already. Now, some of them absolutely will be sales and work and money related. So that's fab. But a lot of the time we can end up procrastinating. We can also spend 13 hours a week in our inbox. So if you think about that, that's basically one really long day a week. So that can be your Friday already if you get inbox 0 sorted. So definitely ways to think about using your email system. But asking these questions: what is it that I'm trying to send someone? Is it better as a document rather than inside the body of an email? Is it an attachment that you can just go, hey, this is the bit of information for my running order for the day? Be able to download it there. Is it a link somewhere, like in the chat we shared earlier, the digital vault? Rather than me trying to email everyone, which seems crazy concept. Here's the link. We're going to do it differently. Are you using platforms like Slack to engage with your team members? If you've got some, have you got a VA that you're working with? How do you two communicate as well? Who are you sending it to? When's the most appropriate time, especially for those of you who work in international? Thinking about what time the receiver will get that email. Will it end up being 2:00 in the morning? Will that be the most appropriate time to have that email sent to their inbox? There's lots of email applications that you can, one called Time Warp, for example, that will stagger the time that your email goes out relevant to the receiver. Where are you sending the email to? Again, that might be geographical, but it also might be virtual, or the platform that you're using. And why are you sending it? Is it something that you can just pick up the phone and go, yeah, that was great idea? Or is it even just a text message to say, yes, brilliant, thank you very much? So really, that can be a massive way that you can reduce the time spent procrastinating in your inbox. Now, this process has already been mentioned in the chat. Ooh, I get very excited by this. This is Pomodoro. We have a nice Pomodoro handout on the sheet for you as well. This is the way that I manage to do my 5-day working week, generally in 4. I'll be honest, during lockdown, it's been hard, and it's at some points been firefighting and working every hour God sends. But I'm easing out of that now, and Fridays are becoming a dreamy day off again. So it is possible. So the concept around Pomodoro, if you haven't come across it before, is 25 minutes, single focus time, no distractions. So that might be putting your phone in airplane mode, switching off all your notifications, closing down your emails, so you're just focusing on that one particular task. 25 minutes and then 5 minutes rest. So at the moment, if we're all sat at our computers all day, the 5 minutes rest is highly advised to get away from the computer. Go and get some fresh air if you can. Go and make yourself a coffee and then have a water at the same time. Come back and then start again. And then the idea being that if you repeat that 4 times and then have a larger break, what I end up doing is I normally have a morning full of 4 Pomodoros, then I have a lunch break, then I have another 4 Pomodoros for the afternoon. And actually, that's brought back in the deadlines that I missed from working in live broadcasting. So that actually helped me achieve those goals. And that's been a conversation in the chat already around, putting those sort of, pretend deadlines back in. So super helpful. This handout specifically doesn't have 5-minute chunks on it, but the clients that I've worked with say to me, Liz, 25 minutes is not even long enough to get my head down and get started. So it might be you go for a 50-minute chunk and a 10-minute break. So have that work for you. And yeah, we'll come back to the chats. I can see Christina's got a Pomodoro question relevant at the moment. So what do you do in your 5-minute breaks? End up taking 15-minute breaks when I step away from a desk and lose track? That's a good point, actually, Christina. So it might be, if you're finding that when you're moving away from your desk after your activity for your 5-minute break, and then maybe you get distracted by something else, put maybe a timer on your watch or your phone and bring it with you so that you know when your 5-minute break is up. So I'll move on to my next slide actually, because the app that I use, it can be on your computer, but it can also be on your phone as well. And it might be that you want to install the program on your phone, and then that timer reminds you after your 5-minute break is up. So this app's called Pomo Done, and it's pomodoneapp.com. You can install it onto your computer. But in that instance, you might want to have it running on your phone so that you take your phone with you when you go for your 5-minute break, and then it reminds you when your 5-minute break is up so you can come back to it. That might be worth having a little bit of a play about with. I highly recommend Pomo Done because it integrates with lots of other platforms and other things. So I use Asana and Trello, which are project management digital tools. And I also use Todoist, which is my to-do list app. And I absolutely love the fact that I can choose within my Pomo Done app what task I'm wanting to work on. It pulls it in from my to-do list app. I choose what to-do list item that I want and say I want to do 3 Pomodoros through Pomo Done on that, and hit yes, and then it will track it for me. So that's fabulous. I love that one. Okie dokie. So pop your questions back in the chat for us. I'm going to share some extra tips, and then it'll be time to wrap up by then. So graphics are lovely, websites is the same. Yes, brilliant. So pop your questions in the chat. Remember the capital Q if you haven't already. Janice B. Gordon actually mentioned some great calendar hacks the other day, and she was saying that actually she'd used set up a new calendar just for the whole summit stuff, so she could cram in the items there. So that's great. Don't be scared to set up a brand new calendar if it's digital for particular conferences or types of work. I color code my calendars. I color code my task lists. Everything's color code for me. Blue means work, green means home, pink means personal, yellow means gym. So for me, I know straight off what I'm looking at based on color code. Obviously, that doesn't work for everyone. If you have color eyesight problems, you can use symbols or icons instead. So there's lots of ways to play about with it, or if you're just not a color person like me. So schedule all the things is the tip on that one. So a couple more hacks for this. Weekly plan. So this has been interesting recently when people have said, Liz, like I'm getting really stuck on like what to do. Like I'd never feel like I'm getting through my to-do list. And the answer to that is maybe try a weekly to-do list or a weekly plan, and then help yourself section off. This will also help if you feel like you are taking on too much, or that your to-do list is never ending, or that you feel like you're never achieving all of those items on the to-do list. So have a think about that. And then going back to the question about the creative time, that could also be white space as well. And that's where you block out time to do nothing. Because if, like Steve and Sam, you've got calendars that are all color coded and everything's like really crammed in, like that example there was on my last slide, make sure you're booking in time for you. So as much as I'm saying book in your work time, also book in your personal time as well. Make sure that you've got time for yourself, the creative time, the going to the gym time, the health, the mental health. Make sure that's all in there as well. And chunking your time. We alluded to this earlier on in terms of the themes of the day that you might do. But if you've got, like, say, 6 phone calls that you need to ring people back, why not try and clump that all into one time? And that's why they call chunking it, and have a chunk of time for phone calls. Now, this also goes hand in hand with if you've got different energy levels during the day or not. So think about, are you a morning person? Do you get loads and loads and loads of stuff done in the morning and then sort of dwindle during the afternoon? Or are you like me, where you like to potter around for a bit, do a few emails, have a few coffees, and then you're ready to go? So for me, doing big, clever, important tasks in the morning is not my bag. So if you try ringing me at 9 o'clock in the morning, asking me loads of important questions, you're not going to get the best out of me. So I generally try and book my phone calls or Zoom calls afternoon, late morning, or after lunch. So thinking about where that energy levels really work for you, and try and plan your calendar so it's there. So chunks of time, it might be it's a chunk that goes in your calendar or a paper calendar as well. I'm not saying that has to just be digital, but it could just be calls time. And then within that, each time you get someone that you need to ring back, write those calls write those people, write those names into that section. So you know it's got a space in your calendar and time to be able to engage with that. Disturb time. This is super helpful if you're working from home and you're not the only person working from home at the moment, or just in a remote location. It could be if you've got a family calendar planner in the kitchen, do not disturb me between 1 and 2 on a Wednesday. Or if you've got it in your calendar and your partner or the people that you're living with have an understanding of when you're busy, when you're free, when the shoulder tapping is acceptable, and when it's not. So having to think about, do not disturb time as well. And that'll be helpful for you to focus. And soft deadlines, we sort of alluded to this before, but if you've got a deadline coming up, give yourself a secondary deadline. So you've got that personal deadline to work to. Obviously, everyone's different with how they work with deadlines. But my way of doing things is I like to have planning in advance. So I would give myself a soft deadline to work up to. And then you've got that buffer room if something happens or something else takes priority that needs to take your focus at that time. So things to have a think about there. Apps wise, and then we'll come to questions. Evernote, I've absolutely fallen in love with Evernote during lockdown. I took all the stuff out of my work office and moved it into my home office and realised I was keeping loads and loads of paperwork, physical paperwork, for no real reason. So Evernote enables you to digitally scan or take a photo with your camera of all the paperwork that you might have. And unless it's, something super important like your birth certificate or your passport, you probably only need to keep a record of it rather than the physical thing. Make sure you read your T's and C's for that. But that means I've been able to get rid of loads of paperwork during lockdown. Todoist is the app that I recommend. And with all of these, I actually use the Pro version because I use them all so much. These are my go-to apps. But if you just want to have a play about with them, or the free version is normally more than enough. Todoist means that you have more projects available to you if you do the paid for version. And Todoist, no surprise to those who color code, but Todoist enables you to color code, unlike most other to-do list apps. So if you're color coding, kind of planner like me, then that's definitely one to look out for. Habitbull is aligning with the question we had before around habit stacking. So Habitbull, the free version, enables you to have 10 habits that you can track at any one time. And then the paid for version just enables you to track more things. Oh, thanks, Sarah. Make sure you read the T's and C's. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. T's and C's for if you're, if also, especially in Sarah's world for contracts and stuff, if you actually have to keep the physical version, the digital version can just be a backup as well if you totally don't want to get rid of something. Pomo done, I mentioned before. And also for those of you working with multiple clients and maybe want to track your time, or maybe you've got team members that are working for you, like maybe VAs, that you want them to track the time they're working for you, Toggle is a great platform as well. So then you can kind of have this little embedded extension into your browser. You can say, I'm working on this particular project now, go, and then it will be able to track your time. Also, if you're working on a book at the moment, that can be saying like how much time are you spending on it. You can tap in and tap out as and when you're working on particular platforms. So I think we're going to go to some questions now, if John's ready to pick up anything from the chat that we had before.
Certainly, I'm ready. Liz, got 3 more here. Have you got time for 3 more questions before
Absolutely,
you wrap up?
yeah.
We go
yeah, let's go for it.
1 minute quick fire thing that Laurie did so well. Yes.
I love
okay,
that. Yes.
Now this one came in twice actually, so I'll be in trouble if this doesn't get asked. Interesting. I think Mark Lee may have a bit of a journalist in him. He wants to know the source of your statistics, Liz. 17% underestimating time, 16-minute distractions. Where do these numbers come from?
So I can absolutely send you the links later because they'd normally be in my PowerPoint slides, but I'm good at remembering these things. The 17% thing, I wrote them down on my slides. 17% things from a Microsoft survey. It is probably a 2005 thing. I can definitely send you the links later. And what was the other stat you mentioned? 16 minutes?
16-minute distraction.
Yes. So there's loads of statistics and stuff out there around that. The 16% is an average, and that can be quoted in a few places. I can't remember offhand. I think it's entrepreneur.com that has the latest blog with those stats. But absolutely, I can send you those links later and pop them in the chat for the reference.
Okay, maybe in the vault as well. I don't know if that's appropriate. Maybe it might go in the vault. Who knows?
Yeah,
Marina
I can do.
Roberts has a question. Quite the other end of the spectrum here. This is broad thought, really. How do you make accountability group buddies most effective?
Oh, okay. So I recently started one up. We did a book club recently around the Miracle Morning book. And so we set up a little WhatsApp group. I think it's been clear about what your intentions are for the group to start off with. So what we said is we'll check in on each other every morning after our time of doing this Miracle Morning. So that's the aim of the game for that particular group. And it's asking each other as well, because I think you have, as much as you should be the one giving your accountability piece to it, it's also about checking in on the others as well. So I think it's agreeing that you'll not only share your information, but that you'll also kind of nudge each other if the other people don't then chip in as well. I think it's about getting the rules right from the start.
Okay, let's take a final question now. This really amused me, and I think will get us all thinking in this world of Zoom. It came from Jeremy Nicholas, and it is this. Is it important to dress smartly lower half as well as upper half when we're on Zoom in order to get into the right mindset?
Interesting question. I think it's all personal, really. I think it's experience as well. So I think if you feel like you need to be completely suited and booted to deliver something virtual or in the conference, in the sort of face-to-face world, I don't have that problem. I quite like being able to just choose smart top, comfy bottoms, but yeah, interesting question though. I think everyone's different, aren't they?
We certainly are. I won't reveal what well, just a discreet pair of jeans and smartish shoes.
Oh, do you know what? Actually, I think there's a question
Semi-casual.
over. There's a question over. Are you wearing like your outdoor shoes in the house? Because I know some people would go crazy if that was the case. So I think that's one thing to think about.
Certainly is. I'd like to put a jacket on when I'm in the zone. I think it personally
Yeah.
helps just be professional, but certainly not when I'm just working by myself. Then it's very casual. That's it from the questions, Liz. Thanks very much. Indeed, some great
Fabulous.
answers there that I've from.
Thanks very much, John. So we'll finish off. I just want to wrap up, give you some top tips. Please do download the document if you haven't already. That is in the vault. There's a final kind of page that we haven't really looked at today, but hopefully you'll find it interesting. It's on my slide now. It's the top 3 tasks. So it's helping you to really focus on what your top 3 tasks are for the day. So we talked before about them being high activities, so high value activities, but it might just be 3 things that you want to get done today. If you're feeling like you're in overwhelm mode, it might just be those 3 tiny little steps to getting something moving or getting something done. There's also the space to be able to track other tasks, any daily habits that you want to be able to record, and any notes of like maybe people to ring and stuff. I use this. I find this really helpful, even though I'm a total digital nut. I do still like having paper places to write notes down on. So having a think about reflecting and reviewing, we've got 1 minute left. What I wanted to do is if you want to share in the chat your top 3 learnings or top 3 tasks that you're going to do after today. It might also be that you want to write them down, maybe in your top 3 tasks, maybe for tomorrow. Great tips that have been happening in the Facebook group in terms of picking your takeaways and what you'll actually action off the back of it can be really helpful as well. So you've got that there. If you want to type some in the chat as well, just to share with each other, and if you want that extra accountability, then each other we can kind of try and keep a track on things as well. Brilliant. proactive and reactive time is a distinction. Yes, Bryony. I think we all need to, now we've sort of got out of that initial firefighting mode, think about how can we be proactive. That's me. I'll carry on looking at the chat. I'll post the link and also the references to the stats I mentioned as well before. I'll make sure they go in by the end of the day, so you've got that reference there as well. But thank you very much for having me, for listening, for engaging, for putting all those fab questions out as well. It really is appreciated. And come see me 21st of November at the Yorkshire PSA. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Liz. Thanks from me. That was great for me. And the messages have been pouring in, people thanking you for some fantastic tips there. For me, it was the Pomodoro. I'd heard other people mention this, but never got my head around it. So Pomodoro time, that's something I'm going to look forward to in the next few weeks. Now, if you have been super productive, super organized, you will find time, with a bit of luck, to attend the AGM. I know that sounds a bit dry, but so important that people do come along to that. That is on Friday at 5:30. You have to book, and you can find the link in the schedule. If you want something while you're doing that, something a bit more fun perhaps, why don't you get involved in the auction? Again, if you go to the reception area, you can find out how to bid for some great stuff. Loads of these fantastic speakers are giving away their services, their advice, their time for free, and you can bid there. We've got heading to £3,000. I'm sure we can do a bit better than that. And of course, come back this evening at 6 o'clock when we'll keep this theme of better business going with Julie Holmes. She has flown in from the States for us to be here tonight. So looking forward to hearing from her, measuring, monitoring and managing what matters. That's what we've got coming up at 6. So go off, be productive this afternoon, and I hope you can join us this evening at 6. Bye-bye.